What would you do if your own child was prophesied to devour you? In the dim reaches of Norse myth, Loki the trickster lies with the giantess Angerboda, and together they spawn 3 children who terrify even the gods. The first is Jormungandr, the serpent destined to coil around the world and strangle the seas. The second is Hel, half rotted and half living, who will rule over the icy halls of the dead. Their third child is a wolf pup. At first glance he seems harmless, but Odin's seers tell a different story. The animal called Fenrir will grow to monstrous size, and on the day called Ragnarok, will tear the Allfather himself from the battlefield, fearing the prophecy but bound by their own sense of honor. The gods decide not to slay the pups outright. They cast Jormungandr into the ocean and consign Hel to the underworld, but they dare not leave the wolf unsupervised. Instead, they bring young Fenrir into their own citadel, Asgard, hoping perhaps that proximity and kindness will tame fate. Only one of them has the courage to approach the fast-growing beast, Tyr. The one-handed warrior who presides over law and honor feeds the wolf by hand, forging a fragile bond between god and monster. Yet as each day passes, Fenrir's paws become the size of shields, and his jaws widen like a chasm. And in their hearts, the gods know that racing their doom may only hasten its arrival. Imagine playing a game where the stakes are your very survival. As Fenrir's size and appetite become frightening, the gods agree they cannot allow him to roam free. They resolve to test his strength, partly out of curiosity and partly to lull him into accepting fetters. First, they fashion a massive iron chain named Liding. With laughter and false encouragement, they coax Fenrir to test his prowess. The wolf stretches his legs, tenses his muscles, and snaps the iron like thread. Undaunted, the gods forge an even thicker chain called Dromi. Once more they praise Fenrir's bravery and urge him to try. Again, the wolf shakes himself, shatters the links and rolls in the dust, his teeth flashing with pride. Each broken bond sends shivers through the watching immortals. Every laugh masks a deeper dread. With each test, Fenrir senses their unease. His eyes, bright with cunning, linger longer on the faces of those who cheer him. He begins to suspect that his strength is both spectacle and threat. What if the only thing that can bind your enemy doesn't exist? When even great chains cannot restrain the wolf, Odin sends Skirnir, the messenger of the fertility god Freyr, into the deep caverns of Svartalfaheim, realm of the dwarves. These subterranean craftsmen are unmatched in skill, and the gods beg them to create a bond no force can break. The dwarves return with something that seems like a joke, a silken ribbon named Gleipnir. It is soft, light as a strip of cloth, and can be hidden in the palm. Yet the dwarves swear it is stronger than any iron. Gleipnir's power lies in its ingredients, each one an impossibility. The ribbon is woven from the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the root of mountains is the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of birds. Because these things do not exist in the world, Fenrir will find nothing to grasp, strain against or tear. Sometimes only the absence of something can truly hold what exists. When the gods take this shimmering band to the wolf, Fenrir eyes it with suspicion. It is too slight, too beautiful. He knows the gods' true intent is not a test, but a trap. Would you stick your hand into the mouth of a creature fated to kill your king? Fenrir refuses to let the delicate ribbon be wrapped around him unless the gods prove their good faith. With cunning born of distrust, he declares that one of them must place their hand between his teeth while the ribbon is wound around his paws. If If the gods are honest and release him after the test, the hand will be safe. If they lie and bind him, the wolf will exact payment. The Aesir glance at one another. None are eager to pay the price. Bravery falters when flesh is on the line. Then Tyr steps forward. As the god of justice and war, he knows the cost of broken oaths. He understands that the gods have sworn to free the wolf after each test, but they mean to cheat this time. With calm resolve, he extends his right hand into Fenrir's jaws. The other gods bind Gleipnir around the wolf's legs. At the signal, Fenrir strains, and the ribbon responds by tightening. He jerks, writhes, and twists, but each movement only strengthens his bonds. Realizing the trick, Fenrir clamps his jaws and slices through Tyr's wrist, severing the god's hand. Tyr does not cry out. He knew the price he would pay, and he pays it without flinching. In sacrificing his hand, Tyr ensures the gods keep the bargain. Without his forfeit, their deception would be pure fraud. Through his pain, the god of honor transforms a trap into a legally binding act. Before the story continues, if you're drawn to these ancient myths and the dark fate of the gods, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It helps keep these legends alive and brings more stories like this to you. Picture a chained monster whose very drool becomes a river of dread. Once bound, Fenrir is more dangerous than ever. The gods drag him to a lonely plain far from Asgard. They attach Gleipnir to a boulder and drive a sword between his jaws to hold them open so that he cannot close his mouth on anything else. The wolf howls with rage, but his furious thrashing only tightens the ribbon. From his gaping mouth pours a foamy river called Ván, expectation, a stream born of frustration and saliva. In this grotesque tableau, the gods feel triumphant. They've prevented for now the end foretold in their nightmares, yet beneath their gloating lies a deeper unease. They know they have bought only a delay, not an escape. In binding the wolf, they have broken their promises and incurred a debt. Fenrir's fiery gaze follows them as they depart. He hears their laughter, but tastes their treachery. Only Tyr stays behind a moment longer, silent and bleeding, perhaps whispering an apology that the wind carries away. Can you ever truly outwit fate? With Fenrir fettered, the gods return to their halls, but the prophecy has not been undone. The poetic Edda and sagas whisper that when Ragnarok arrives, the ribbon will snap, the wolf will break free, and his first act will be to devour Odin. The chain made of impossibilities can hold him only until the impossible day when the world itself cracks. When that dawn comes, Fenrir will race across the battle plain with fire in his eyes, his jaws stretching from earth to heaven, swallowing everything in their path. The Binding of Fenrir is more than a story of a monster chained. It reveals the Norse understanding of honor, law, and the inevitability of destiny. Tyr, often remembered only as a war god, emerges as the divine legal expert. By offering his hand, he legitimizes the god's otherwise fraudulent act, turning treachery into an enforceable bargain. In doing so, he sacrifices not just flesh, but his ability to wield his sword, diminishing himself for the greater good. Fenrir, meanwhile, becomes a symbol of suppressed chaos. His binding shows that power constrained without consent will someday explode. Each character in this myth moves closer to their appointed end. The gods through their fear and deceit, the wolf through his rage, and Tyr through his unwavering commitment to justice. When you hear the tale of Tyr and the Binding of Fenrir, you are not merely listening to an ancient Viking legend. You are witnessing a timeless meditation on courage, fate, and the price of breaking your word. As we await the coming of Ragnarok in the story, we are invited to ask ourselves, what promises have we made, and what will we sacrifice to keep them?